Hello, my name is Richard Fisher. I'm the publisher of Inside Unmanned Systems, and here we are, day 2 in San Diego, California at Xponential 24. And with us today, we have Bastian, who's the Chief Executive Officer at Plettenberg. Bastian Greiner from Plettenberg, Chief Executive Officer based in Germany. Bastian, welcome today.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's all our pleasure. So, Bastian, tell our audience about your primary product offering in propulsion solutions and what your kind of foundational value proposition is, which, as many of our readers know, it's the ruggedness and delivering a really robust, rugged, hardened type of solution to operate well and reliably for an extended period of time in some pretty extreme operational environments. That's the basic setup, correct?
Exactly. I think you described it correctly. So we are active in the space where customers need rugged systems. So if you deploy your drone in environments which are harsh, such as in a desert environment or in maritime environments, or anything where you fly in high altitudes, for instance, or we have rain, icing and stuff like this.
Sure.
Our core product is called the Nova series of BLDC motors, and they are closed in design. So it's quite different to the usual propulsion systems that you have from other manufacturers, which are typically open outrunners. We are on the in-runner side, and our engineers spend a lot of time on the development and advance the in-runner in a way that it's very comparable in the characteristics to the outrunner. So it has relatively high torque, has a high pole count as compared to normal in-runner motors. We have higher torque, slightly lower RPM, so it's very comparable in characteristics to the outrunner, but it has the big advantage of being able to manufacture in fully closed design with IP67 rating if the customer wants this. So this is really how we differentiate on one end. On the other end, we can customize the systems according to the requirements of the customer. We spend quite a bit of time together with our customers on their requirements. We have quite a few customers in the defense space, big defense OEMs who come to us with a very complex list of requirements. So we spend a lot of time with them going through the requirements and discuss how we can implement them in the project, and then work on a customized solution for them. We recently also changed a little bit our go-to-market strategy. So we now offer also commercial off-the-shelf products. So we have a new product catalog with 30 different motors, which we believe is the ones which are highest in demand. And if a customer doesn't find the right motor in that catalog, we have a modified off-the-shelf product where we adjust the winding. So basically it's the kV of the motor, so the RPM relative to the voltage.
Got it.
And with that you have a very big coverage of different applications you can tackle. And if that's not suitable and the customer requires more mechanical adaptation or special environmental protection features and stuff like this, we have a fully customized, we call it FC product, which is then a larger project, takes a bit more time, and of course much more tailored towards the requirements of the customers on the mechanical side.
Okay, so you have basically 3 tiers of going from a COTS, ready off the shelf, ready to go.
Exactly.
And all the way up to something that's fully customized, and then something kind of hybrid in between with some slight modifications.
Exactly.
And so, is it that your fully customized work, all the you've got 5,000 different configurations thus far, many of which are targeted specifically for a particular, let's say, DoD customer, a particular use case. You're taking kind of all that knowledge and all that IP and everything that you've learned there and kind of distilling it down into a ready-to-go, COTS type of solution.
Exactly.
That will provide the vast majority of operators in that operational environment.
Exactly.
A satisfactory solution, yes?
Exactly. And for many customers, it's the first step of working with us. So if they don't know us, they come and say, well, I need relatively quickly a test motor. Can you deliver something quickly to me? And this is, of course, best done with a commercial off-the-shelf product. Then the customer can start their testing.
In the U.S. Defense market, there's been some pretty fundamental changes there's been kind of a shift, and there's a number of programs of record out there that are really kind of emblematic of that, where the requirements are changing such that, you know, there's a modular open MOSA where it has to be open, interoperable, and kind of part of the reason for that, this kind of open architecture and a willingness to get more companies to collaborate, is that they want to increase the rate at which they can design and build and deploy the next kind of capability.
Yeah.
So are you seeing that, you know, as you're kind of in a really unique position, you're on the inside, you're the internal kind of service provider, you know, a vendor for a really foundational capability. I mean, the propulsion system is kind of the thing that, you know, defines mission sets, you know, range, duration, you know, operational requirements, all that. But are you seeing the pace quicken? And if so, what does that mean to a company like Plettenberg, who to do that kind of R&D on 5,000 different configurations takes some time? So tell us about that.
So we, it's a broad question. I try to break it down a little bit. So what we see two trends with our defense customers, not only in the US, but I would say internationally. So what we see is, on one side, the classic defense OEMs who have very strict requirements, very strict processes. They don't want to have a lot of changes, and they are very conservative with their development, I would say. And then on the other side, you have sort of startup disruptors, which are very quickly to move. They do a lot of pivots. They want to be much faster, and they also have a lot of changes in their requirements. So for us, it's always important when we work with customers and we do a customized or semi-customized product to get the requirements fixed. And with big defense OEMs, it's very easy because the requirements don't change essentially. But on the startup side, the requirements are very much in flux. So they try out a lot, and hence we also changed our approach and go a little bit more standard when we work with early stage startups to give them some opportunity to experience the product and then iterate from there, basically. So this is the two main trends that we see. On one side, customers who want to be very quickly and iterate a lot. On the other side, the classic defense OEMs, and which have this aerospace kind of approach of not changing the product too much. It's locked in. That's also what we do on our side. So the commercial off-the-shelf products, there might be modifications been done over time on the product. So when we have a new technology which we want to build in, that's certainly something that we do in a new release. But when we have a customer locked in on the defense OEM side, for instance, the product doesn't change, of course. So, because you need to provide the same product over many years. So we have one example of a customer which buys an unchanged product from us for 25 years. So this is a very long time, and it's tough actually to manufacture the product nowadays because it's very old technology. You not even get the materials that you got back then. So it's also very complex product in the end.
But it works, and it works well for them.
It works well. It works well.
And you're one subsystem. You're one part of a much larger ecosystem of capabilities, of subsystems, of navigation, propulsion, and sensors, and all kinds of additional integrated kit.
Yeah.
So the argument for keeping it frequently has nothing to do with your propulsion. I mean, it must be nice to know that your pedigree causes them to not need to change or not want to change.
Absolutely. And when we do changes, so it's not like we have 5,000 different products which we need to change. It's a modular approach basically that we have for our products. So for instance, a motor in the same housing can have like 20 different versions with different windings and so on. So it's very easy to also integrate innovations and roll them out to a large range of products. So it's not too difficult.
So what do you see as trends in kind of future requirements? What do you see looking into the future in the coming year or 2 years in terms of what your customer demands are going to be?
So what we see in almost all the different RFI, RFQ requests that we get from customers is they want to have ruggedness. That's why we are very focused on this. So they want to have very robust systems. Almost everyone wants to have the standard tests done, or DO 160 or something like this. So they want to have environmental testing been done by the component manufacturer. They want to have stuff like EMI testing and so on also be handled by the component manufacturer. They also want things like a propeller stop and orientation function, for instance. They want integrated ESCs, so that's why we also released a new product where we have an integrated ESC on the back of the motors to have a single replaceable unit. So that's something that almost everyone wants. More and more customers want sensor-guided systems, so it's a sensor which is included in the ESC and in the motor, which sort of reads the position which you need for the orientation function, but also to achieve higher peak performance. So that's all the different trends that we see, and some also want more reliable systems and redundancy. That's a little bit less in the defense space, but more on the commercial side. If they want to certify their systems, they want to have some redundant capabilities, and you can of course do a coaxial system, but there's also other options. We just released a new motor, which is quite an innovation. So we have 3 different winding segments in one motor, 3 separate ESCs which are not connected to each other, so you have no single point of failure on them. And if one ESC would, for instance, fail and burn into the motor and burns down the faces on one side of the motor, you still have 2 wiring segments which are active, and you can do an emergency landing. So it brings you forward a lot on your certification and failure rate calculations with the authorities.
Wow,
it's a big step.
Really interesting.
And saves, of course, a lot of weight as compared to having a coaxial setup. You have just one propeller, not 2 propellers. You save a motor, and so on. So it's
and somebody who's going to invest in that kind of redundancy this is clearly a mission critical or safety critical application.
Absolutely.
Very valuable, very important.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So with all those kind of, have you seen, so that is the trend in terms of the requests, in terms of the requirements. Have you seen those increase? Are the customers asking for more and different and more frequently, which causes you to have to innovate, kind of accelerate your rate of innovation as well?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I think that's again.
So how do you keep up with that? It sounds complicated. It sounds like a lot of work, Bastian. I know you're a hard worker.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and everyone at Plettenberg works very hard. So there's again two different kinds of customers. So there's one type of customer which just want a very simple product, which is not safety critical, which is deployed, for instance, in the agricultural sector or something like this, where you don't have any drone flying over a densely populated area or something like this. And there's the other customers which want to deploy their system in a populated area which needs certification going forward. And of course on the certification side the requirements are very, very strict, while on the other customer they might risk a drone and not spend too much time and effort on getting the propulsion system very high quality certified and all of this. But the other customers require to do this, so they have very long requirement lists. So it's very complex development projects actually. So it's not like you just deliver a motor to a customer and do some tweaks here and there. It's a very complex project which takes maybe 6 months, a year, maybe 18 months to work through all the requirements, develop the product, do the testing, do the environmental qualifications, and this is increasing a lot. So we see there's more and more customers coming with longer requirement lists.
That's great. So no matter how challenging your requirements, Bastian is saying Plettenberg can not only handle it, but it's probably done it before. And if they haven't, they're willing to still work with you on how to deliver a solution that will kind of exceed whatever those operational requirements are. So as you look around, Bastian, in at this conference, what kind of trends or patterns do you see evolving? Nobody really goes it alone. We are a collaborative kind of ecosystem by definition, right? So, any observations in terms of being here on the show floor that you'd like to share?
So we are primarily focused on propulsion. So we of course look at everything which concerns the powertrain and the propulsion of the drone and maybe the generator side of things. And I think there again the trends are clearly that on one side you have the more simple solutions which are for less safety critical applications. On the other side you have the more certifiable, higher quality, more industrial style of applications.
Right.
That's also an important point when you, for instance, do robotics business, for instance.
Sure.
And the robot needs to be deployed 24/7 to sort of be profitable for the end customer.
Yeah.
This is something which is very important. You need industrial grade equipment for operating this, because otherwise it will fail all the time and you will not achieve the efficiency that you need so that the system pays off. And this is something which we try to tackle, which I think some other component manufacturers also try to tackle, to advance their technology in a way. It's more like industrial grade, reliable equipment, which in the end, from a total cost of ownership perspective, make much more sense for the customer. That's also what we stand for. You can buy a motor which fails after 6 months and replace it, of course, but you can also buy a motor which costs maybe a little bit more initially, but over time it pays off because it's holding 6 times as long as the other motor, but costing maybe twice as much.
Yeah, great point. And that market segment's going to continue to expand pretty dramatically.
And you need this, like the operators on the UAV side, they need this. So if you want to have a logistics drone, it needs to work like 24/7 to pay off. Otherwise, it's not profitable. And if you want to achieve this, you need industrial grade, reliable equipment on the drone.
Points of failure, get rid of, eliminating points of failure, enabling whatever platform to operate 24/7 in a reliable, robust, hardened, really kind of ruggedized way is going to really enable the ecosystem to grow. And whether it's in defense or it's in industrial robotics or some of the common user communities for UAS, the reality is to the extent we're going to have drones that don't work, drones whose navigation is not optimal. We are strong advocates for resiliency, robustness, high requirements, and rugged solutions. So we applaud your efforts to bring those to bear to an ecosystem that really needs it. So if for anybody who's here, and if they want to have a conversation with you, Bastian, I can assure you Bastian's a wealth of information and a nice guy too. But what booth and how can they get in touch, Bastian?
So you can visit us at our booth 4549.
Okay, 4549.
You can always reach out to us via our website, www.plettenbergmotors.com.
Okay.
And just contact our sales team. We will revert to you as soon as we can.
Great. Well, I appreciate your time today. It's always a pleasure to see you, Bastian.
Again, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure meeting you as well.
Yes. This is Richard Fisher. That's all for now. We'll see you on the next live stream. Thank you.